we recommend to amend the Church Manual, Chapter 10, the section Elections, pages 116, 120, Nominating Committee Election Process, to read as follows. In the agenda, this is on third paragraph of your agenda, the church may decide based on its needs that it would be best served with a standing nominating committee. In that case, such as it may appoint such a committee which would function year-round. We are crossing out to make the nominations for. Instead, we have recommend to the church names to fill. I think this is to make it clear that the nominating committee, their work is to recommend names, and the church will vote to accept or not the names recommended by the committee. The next section, if I may, it's under the same item. It's the work of the nominating committee. If you are following the agenda, it's page 50-51. And on the screen, you can see the whole paragraph, because in the agenda we have split in 2 different pages. But I have the full paragraph on the screen. Work of the nominating committee: the chairperson should call a meeting, church making the appointments, and then we are adding this section. This is new, the last part of this paragraph. The returning of a faithful tithe is a prerequisite for holding church office. The pastor or chair of the nominating committee shall work with the treasurer to develop a process by which only members eligible to hold office are nominated. This should be done in such a way that it maintains as much confidentiality as possible.
I draw your attention to page 51 and lines 2 to 5. And I want to speak against the inclusion of these lines. In this inclusion, we have a prerequisite for taking church office. There are actually many prerequisites, and here we've just singled out one. And what it does is it introduces into the church manual some changes to relationships. You know, the tithe is something that really is between the individual and God. But here we're making it between the individual and God, his pastor, his church elder. That concerns me. In singling out finances and the way we have it worded here, we're also now requiring the church pastor and the elder to become tithe policemen. And so they need to go in and investigate and police, essentially, do the investigation, become policemen, and decide whether a person is eligible to be taken office, etc., based on that. And I think that because of that, what we have here is an inclusion that is somewhat draconian and potentially problematic for the church. And so for that reason, Mr. Chair, I would actually like to move an amendment that we don't include. In other words, we delete these lines, and that we rely on page 90 and what we have later on to pick up a more broad statement around tithing and not put it in here.
If you're not agreed to this, would you just vote no? And if you would be agreed to it, you have the option of voting to agree with it. I would think it would help a great deal if we moved that way. All right, thank you. Microphone number 4, Davidson Agu. Oh, sorry. Yes, Davidson Agu.
That's correct.
Port Haircut Conference. Thank you for affirming.
Thank you, Brother Chair.
SID.
Okay. I have a problem with line 3 of the recommendation, the committee, that says the pastor or chair of the nominating committee shall work with the treasurer to develop a process by which only members eligible to hold office are nominated. Now, my problem here is if we don't have a clear-cut position, this may just create windows for abuse. Now, it will make this position or this condition to be very relative. Almost every church may be now tilted to doing what will suit them or what they want. And humans being what we are, I think there'll be a need for us to have a clear guide that will monitor that there will be no abuse of power on this. So that either the chair of the nominating committee or the pastor, or whoever that would chair that committee, will not have the privilege to himself or herself to dictating who qualifies to be nominated. If we can keep a clear process, that will be very common to the churches. That will be very beautiful. So for me, I will advise that the position before now should be allowed to stay. And especially the line number 6 again, 6, 7, 8, 9, that are being recommended to be expunged. I see it to be stronger than the recommendations on lines 11, 12, 13, and 14. And on this, I will advise, Brother Chair, that we allow lines 1 to 9 to stay, but to make a specific position on how the chair will liaise with the treasurer to dictate, or not really dictate, to be able to know who exactly qualifies. Let's not leave it to be relative. That's my advice. Thank you.
All right.
Chair.
Thank you. Bradley Kemp, you're rising to a point of order. South Pacific Division, microphone number 2, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did move a motion. The Chair did not call for a second. That's a point of order.
Challenges wasn't clear.
The chair is willing for you to restate then the motion specifically. Bradley, please.
Thank you. Just see if I can find My motion was that the new additions in lines 2 to 5 be deleted.
All right, is there a second? Seconded, thank you. All right, give us some time to get that on the screen, the amendment. The motion to amend, the main motion includes there that we remove the additions on page 51, lines 2 to 5. All right, let's see if anyone wants to speak to that amendment. Okay, we have Tobias Koch, Inter-European Division, microphone number 12.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Tithing is voluntary. There are circumstances that prevent tithing, or it can be paid directly to the conference without calling into question one's spiritual stance. Furthermore, imagine somebody suddenly only pay a fifth after the voting. And would they have to submit their tax return to the pastor? I think not. So I want to speak in favor for this amendment.
Thank you. And with that, we'll go to microphone number 11, Alfred Soare, GC Delegate at Large, EUD.
Brother Chair, thank you. Some countries are subject to specific data protection regulations, such as the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. The processing of sensitive personal data under such frameworks may be incompatible with the principle of data minimization as outlined in Article 5 of the GDPR. This exposes the Church to the risk of significant penalties, such as 4% of global annual turnover. For this reason, I am in favor of this motion.
All right, thank you. We will go to Sarafina Sikwata, East Central Africa Division. Microphone number 8.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd just like also to support the expunging of that additional statement. And my reason is that when you say a member of regular standing, and then the next statement is that tithing is a prerequisite, it implies that we are using our tithe giving as a measure of regular standing, which is not correct, because a Christian or a member of regular standing is it comprises of many factors and not necessarily tithing. And as my colleague previously said, that there are many circumstances that might affect tithing of a member, which might not necessarily be reflecting their spiritual standing at that given point. And therefore, I support the motion that we expunge the additional statements that had been added. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to microphone number 10, Timothy Standish, General Conference.
Thank you, Brother Chair. I also stand in support of the motion. I actually stood up to make exactly the same one, so Australians must think alike. This particular inclusion turns the pastor and the treasurer into inquisitors, essentially. In addition to that, there is so much room for misunderstanding in something like this. A businessman might go for several years without realizing a gain in his business investments. In fact, he might be living off his savings or making a loss over a period of years before realizing the gain, and it may look like he's paying no tithe, and then he might realize that gain and make a payment of $1.5 million or something. In fact, I think probably most of us are aware of situations like that. Or what about the person who is in a marriage in which they are not the breadwinner, but they alone are a church member? There are other criteria, a range of criteria that must be considered with wisdom and good judgment to determine whether somebody is going to make is an appropriate choice for a position in our church. So I stand in support of this motion.
Thank you. We move now to microphone number 5, Victor Singh, Southern Asia Division.
Thank you, Brother Chair. I support this motion of amendment. Brother Chair, we need to understand return of a faithful tithe. Now, as a professional in the field, you can easily question, a pastor can question, you have returned an unfaithful tithe. This can be open up the floodgates of misuse. Now, the greatest part is, when you have a committee which is prominently formed of administrators, this is something against the lay members. This is against, because the administrators and employed members, your tithes are already deducted. So you know it is a faithful tithe. But for a lay member, somebody can question him, you have an unfaithful tithe. Should a lay member go with their income tax and all the proof to prove that it is a faithful tithe? So my question through you, Brother Chair, is what was the thinking of the committee in putting up such a draconian line there? Because this is primarily against the lay members. What was the thinking? So somebody, I think the Brother Chair I don't know the name of the pastor, the secretary is standing. What was the thinking of this esteemed committee to put up something like that in the amendment? That is why we want to understand that, please.
And
thank you.
Thank you, and I'm sure it's not intended to be against the church members, but Jason, you may want to comment on this.
You're correct, Pastor Chair. There is, I never thought that way. When we received this recommendation, I don't think anybody in the committee understood that to be used against the members in general. The idea, I believe, was just to raise a standard of regarding faithfulness in the stewardship area.
Thank you very much. Microphone number 12, Marius Monteno, Inter-European Division.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With all due respect to the work of the Church Manual Committee, it's hard to understand the reason for singling out giving tithe as a prerequisite to hold a church office. And I have several concerns, including this aspect as the only condition will flare up the concerns of the church members who already mentioned several times that all the church is looking for is our money. Secondly, the sentence, I quote, "to develop a process" is extremely vague and can be easily transformed into whatever the local culture consider a process, thus opening way to abuses. And thirdly, preserving confidentiality is non-negotiable, as it is mentioned in under several other passages in the same paragraph. So, definition of a confidentiality or a secret, to be a secret should be known by one person. And what if a person returns tithe anonymously and not appearing in the role of the church might be considered as not fulfilling this prerequisite. So given these concerns, I speak in favor of amending the motion to delete this addendum. Thank you.
Thank you. I have 3 more speakers, and if you will... Oh, there are 31 below. Okay. Sorry, I didn't see that. Okay, microphone number 10, Philip Mills, GC Delegate at Large.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I speak against this motion. We would not want in our church embezzlement, bank robbers, and we would not be arguing against that. Malachi, the Bible says that not paying tithe is robbing God. Why would we have people who rob God as officers of the church? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We go to microphone number 12, Norbert Zans, Inter-European Division, please.
Thank you very much, Brother Chair. I also speak against this motion. We believe that tithing is an important element of the spiritual life of every believer. And if somebody is not living this Lordship of Jesus Christ as we believe it, I think it is appropriate that the church kind of takes that in consideration when somebody is considered for a leadership position. So I speak against this motion.